seated. Before we get into the sermon, I want to offer a word of congratulations to our own Norm Rasmussen. Perhaps you heard or read in the press telegram that Norm was honored this week as an inductee into the Long Beach City College Hall of Fame. I read it, somebody called me about it. We all love you, Norm, and we are grateful for all you contribute to this community. Congratulations. I invite us now to join in a word of prayer. Gracious God, root us in your love in this moment. Help us find stillness, rest, and renewal in this sacred time together as we listen for your word of guidance and inspiration for each of us today. Amen. Today we continue with our sermon series on stories from Luke's gospel, in which Jesus illustrates the nature of radical grace that meets us in times of need, challenges us to deeper and perhaps more courageous faith, and urges us to grow broader and more generous in our practice of extending grace and love to others. And so we find ourselves with Jesus at the home of his friends Mary and Martha. Martha welcomes him in and then gets to work providing some hospitality, probably preparing a meal. Now, Jesus had been traveling with his disciples, so it's likely that some of them are there too, though we're not told by Luke. So Martha might have assumed that lunch was expected. After all, providing hospitality to anyone who stopped by was part of the culture. And women were often the ones who did that hospitality. So Martha's response to her visitors is probably expected, probably conventional in the culture. But Mary, instead of helping her sister, does a more unconventional and unexpected thing and sits down at Jesus' feet as a disciple and as a student, perhaps along with some of the men, to listen to what he has to say. But then, as you know, a tense moment erupts. Lord, do you not care that she's left me to do all the work? Martha's exasperated. Tell her to help. Martha, you're worried and distracted by many things, but only one thing matters. Mary has chosen the better part, and it won't be taken from her. Not the reply from Jesus that she was looking for, I'm sure. But rather than a rebuke of Martha, I read this reaction of Jesus to be an invitation. A challenge, yes, but not a scolding. For one, Jesus isn't going to let Martha interfere with Mary's choice to be a disciple and a student in this moment. Mary's choice is good, and he isn't going to give in to cultural expectations for what women should be doing in this moment. I love that. I doubly love that if he did that in front of all the dudes. Second, Jesus addresses the heart of Martha's issue, which is not that she is busy working and trying to provide hospitality, but that she is distracted and worried. Her tasks have become a burden. So perhaps Jesus is inviting her to stop and rest also. She's been plenty hospitable already. She's welcomed them in. Perhaps what she needs for her soul is to join her sister, to join Jesus as a disciple and a student as well. Now, we're left to finish the story for ourselves. This is all Luke gives us. Oh, isn't that the case sometimes? We don't know how Martha responded. Did she sit down and listen? Did the two sisters reconcile their differences? Did Jesus send Peter out for takeout so nobody had to cook? Kind of hope for that one. Who knows? But I like to think that Martha accepted Jesus' invitation and joined them and sat down and honored her own call to discipleship as a lifelong learner. Now, I want to caution us against a couple of things as we read this story. One, perhaps we should back off from the temptation to divide up our families, our workplaces, our church, our other communities into Marthas and Marys and start pointing out who's who. Probably not helpful. Second, we shouldn't assume that Martha was a bitter workaholic and that Mary was lazy and careless towards her sister. I don't think there's any need to pigeonhole these two women based on this one interaction. Now, all of that said, I confess that I've always found this short little story to be both beautifully inspiring and a bit annoying and bothersome. And that is because my inner Mary and my inner Martha are in constant dialogue with one another. And sometimes that dialogue rises to the level of a passionate argument. Maybe you can relate? I hope so. I hope I'm not the only one. You know, we can all harness some strong inner Martha energy in order to get stuff done, right? It's how we survive. It's how we thrive. My inner Martha is solid and dependable. She loves both her paper and electronic calendars. She loves checking things off her to-do lists, clearing out her email inbox. She is most at ease when the dishwasher is empty, the laundry is done, and the house is clean and tidy. She enjoys meaningful work and finds God in service. But sometimes my inner Martha gets worn out. She can get overly worried about what others think and overly self-critical. She can get irritable when tasks fall through the cracks, whether she was the one who dropped them or somebody else. She can also kind of get lost in the details and forget to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Now, we can also harness some strong inner Mary energy in order to live a life worth living. It's how we grow and learn and enjoy the world around us. My inner Mary is a creative spirit and an eager learner. She loves her art supplies. She loves reading, studying, or watching something educational or inspirational. She loves communing with nature. She's most at ease when she's so absorbed by something that she loses track of time. She enjoys beauty and finds God in moments of deep connection. But sometimes, my inner Mary procrastinates. She can neglect the things that she just doesn't want to do. She can gripe about the to-do lists that Martha loves. This is one of those points of tension. And she starts a lot of projects that may or may not ever get done. These two, they're always talking to each other. And though it might not always be comfortable, I've come to realize that I actually need the ongoing dialogue and push and pull of my inner Martha and Mary energies. Perhaps you have noticed that too. I hope I'm not alone here. I'm just pouring this all out. At their best, when functioning together, our inner Mary and Marthas can bring some balance to us, right? And perhaps when things get out of balance, Jesus is the one that can help bring them back together. Jesus told Martha that Mary chose the better part and invited her to do the same. It's not that Mary was better than her sister. It's that she made a better choice for herself in that moment. I suspect that Mary was just as likely to get out of balance as her sister. Aren't we all? We're all human. And of course, there's plenty to cause us to lose our balance after all. the personal stuff, the interpersonal stuff, societal, political, and world stuff, the tasks and the to-do lists, the everyday mundane stuff, but also the serious stuff, the important stuff, the stuff that can really stress us out. Stuff, 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 stuff. Sometimes too much stuff. Some days I feel like I have so many things spinning around in my head and heart that I have trouble figuring out where to put my attention and which way is up. I can feel like Dorothy and Toto swirling around all topsy and turvy in a tornado, watching pieces of their uprooted Kansas life float by the window. Anyone else? You know, I had this long doom scroll of a list going on in my head as I was writing this sermon, but I decided not to take you up into my personal angry stress tornado today. You're welcome. However, if anyone wants to talk about yours, commiserate, share experiences, let me know. I'm here for you. That is part of what I do here. Sometimes it can be hard to find the ground. Where is God in all of this? How do we find our center again when we feel like we're just being tossed around? Finding balance is not always easy. And you know, one thing I learned from ballet, yoga, and a very brief stint in gymnastics as a kid is that physical balance can actually take a lot of effort, right, Christy? Focus and willingness to adjust to the moment. Balancing is actually quite a dynamic process, not a static one. Sometimes stopping all movement and regrouping can help with balance. But if you let yourself get too rigid, too stiff, too unwilling to adjust, the slightest thing can knock you off center again. And of course, as Christy reminds me on a very regular basis, breathe through it all. I think this is true of mental, emotional, and spiritual balance too, of course. Sometimes when we're off kilter, we have to stop. We have to regroup. We have to adjust to the moment, find the ground, find center, catch our breath. Only then can we move forward and get back to work in meaningful, healthy, and helpful ways. We're not told what else Jesus was teaching that day at Mary and Martha's house, but given his track record, I'm guessing it had something to do with the love that animated and inspired his whole life. God's radical, gracious, expansive, all-encompassing, life-giving, soul-nourishing love. The love that can fill us up and flow through our lives into the world. Mary, Martha, you, me, all of us can return to this love at any time, and it can help us find our grounding, our rooting, our center. And though the angry stress tornado may still be swirling around us, perhaps it won't succeed in totally knocking us off our feet or sucking us in. Anything that you can do, or anything that you choose not to do in your daily living that helps ground you, root you, center you in this love is time well spent, I think. Honestly, I don't know how we can truly take on some of the big challenges of our day and age and our personal lives and make any positive progress together without this grounding in love. At least I know I can't. And we all need to practice the rhythm of living that does ground us and helps us be our best, most loving selves. When we find a balance and rhythm of work and rest, contemplation and action, service and prayer, speaking our mind out of the truth of our understanding and experience, and listening to that of others, I think good things can happen in our lives, in our relationships, in our communities, in our society, in our world. Seems countercultural, doesn't it? This summer, I was reminded, of course, that we all need joy. We all need fun and laughter, and we need to take notice of beauty as well. My husband and I were up in the Central Coast, and we happened upon some otters one evening. The sun was sinking. It was nearing that gorgeous golden hour. They were pretty close into shore, so we could see them really well. It was quite a treat. And they were just in their evening otter zone, doing their thing, swimming around, hunting for food, floating on their backs, eating. They're so cute. I love them. It was a simple moment, really, right? But a precious one, because you don't happen upon that every day. And I was positively giddy. What a joy to spend a few precious, perfect moments with these awesome critters. We need fun and laughter. We need joy. We need beauty. And when life hands you a moment like that, you ought to take notice. Dave's not even here, and I had to go there. I'll tell him later. In addition to finding our rhythm and balance in life, I think we can also seek an attitude of harmony and integration in everything we do. We can strive to bring that prayerful intention, that positive and loving attitude, that mindfulness to all of our daily living, even to those tedious tasks that we just have to get done. I find some inspiration for this in the life of Brother Lawrence. Maybe some of you have heard of him. He was a 17th century French Carmelite monk. As a young man, he was wounded in war and dealt with a permanent disability and chronic pain for the rest of his life as a result. At the monastery, Brother Lawrence spent many of his days working in the kitchen, cooking and caring for his community. After his death, some of his writings and ideas and words were collected into a book entitled The Practice of the Presence of God, in which he spoke about prayer as being primarily about paying attention and finding God's presence in each and every moment. The editor, Joseph de Beaufort, wrote, "It was observed that in the greatest hurry of business in the kitchen, Brother Lawrence still preserved his recollection and heavenly mindedness. He was never hasty nor loitering, but did each thing in its season with an even, uninterrupted composure and tranquility of spirit." That's a high bar to set. Brother Lawrence said, "The time of business does not with me differ from the time of prayer. In the noise and clutter of my kitchen, while several persons are at the same time calling for different things, I possess God in as great a tranquility as if I were upon my knees at the Blessed Supper. The preparation and eating of every meal and all that went into that became a sacrament, became communion for him." I suspect Brother Lawrence had some strong Mary and some strong Martha energies within him. And at least according to his own testament and that of Joseph, he was able to bring these together and bring them into harmony with one another by looking for and finding God's presence in all things, even cleaning up the dirty dishes. God love him. I'm not going to act like this is always easy. And I'm sure Brother Lawrence didn't do this perfectly. Part of the point, of course, is that life gives us endless opportunities to practice this along the way. And when we fail, we try again. So this is my hope for you today. Whatever it is that helps you find harmony, integration, balance, and centers you in the radical, gracious love of God, do it. Never doubt that it's time well spent. Amen.